questions that are being asked, I'd like to mostly address, so this is my preference, is questions that affect how you walk. Questions about living this out. What he's always told me is, tell them that if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they'll be where they're supposed to be. But you need a teacher to teach you what it is you need to be doing. All right, Frederick.
I have a
very deep voice, that's what you have.
Yes.
With a very wide range.
Of course.
Get to the question. I'll do the jokes.
I thought I was supposed to be asking the question, not answering it. Sorry.
That's me ignoring you. All right, go ahead.
I have a question about something that is a reoccurring over the last years that I've been uncomfortable with, that I didn't know why.
Okay.
And now I think I know why, and I want to run it by you before I... So everybody knows I sing. Over various times, people have come up to me and say, oh, you sound so good. And particularly during the middle of the praise time when the music is playing, whether it's canned or not, it's always made me uncomfortable. And
the praise has made you uncomfortable?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's not big, and I can tell that they mean well and it's something positive, and it's not that, it's because there's something missing. They're hearing me because I'm praising him. If I wasn't praising him, you wouldn't be hearing me. Right. So to leave out the fact that this is praise, to leave out this part of the...
Okay, so I understand what you're saying. Look, I think that and by the way, I've told people how much I appreciate them when they were awful, but I could see that their heart was in praise. We've had a few people who are very loud and very strong and very off. But they're so this way, right? They're so vertically praising. And I still love it, even though I want to walk a little distance from it, but I still love it. Well, that's only because my musical ear, it's a little tough, but I appreciate where they are, right? So I think when people are praising your singing, they're praising it because of the praise singing you're doing. And so I think it's implied in there.
And I understand that, but all I'm hearing is that they're praising the praise giver, not letting letting his praise be esteemed. And so there's a wording issue that's missing the mark for me.
For you, but see, yeah. That's you gotta understand, you can't control other people's words, so you have to find a way to read between the lines. So for example.
Well, that's one of my struggles.
I understand
I have trouble reading between the lines.
I'm gonna help you with that. All right, so like I have said in the past that I know there's a lot of very self-deprecating people out there that, if they get praised to do something that's vertically related, it's like, oh, no, don't praise me. It's all about him and this and that and everything else. Well, there's nothing wrong with that, but you did do something. You had a part. Mm-hmm. So when people tell me how much they were blessed by something I said, I say, thank you. Because I still said it. Now, they know and I know where it came from. And I might say at the same time, thank you. All praises to Yah for giving me the words, right? But I still did something. You did something. You sang during praise, and it lifted them up too, which is something that you participated in while you were going and singing praise. And so I'm helping you to see that's what was happening there. It wasn't just you singing somewhere else, doing some secular thing, whatever. During praise, they were lifted up with you in your singing praise.
Okay. Then the one part that I think, while I'm in the middle of while the music is playing, I'm trying to be vertically oriented, and somebody comes up and says that, and then throws me into this, and it's an interruption.
Okay, that shouldn't happen. All right. Look, if you're appreciating somebody praising, you appreciate somebody doing something, do not bother them while they're doing it. Because they're not doing it for your benefit. They're not doing it for your entertainment value. They're not doing it for anything but the fact of what you know they're doing. So please respect that. Don't interrupt them. Oh, but I wanted to, that's the key word, I wanted to let them know how much I liked it. Well, but they don't need to hear that at that moment. They are there this way.
It's not about them.
Right. But you can still receive at a later point, hey, when you were praising, it really helped lift me up. That's a better way to word it for you guys. I really appreciated your singing and your praising because it pulled me in with you, right? Or whatever it was. That's a great praise, but not while he's in the middle of it.
I think part of it is that there's this, I'm seeing this we got to acknowledge all relationships.
Right.
And they're acknowledging this direction without acknowledging this direction when this direction is the reason.
I know, but you can't control that, and you have to be okay with that. And it may be happening, it's just not being worded, okay? Look, I'm going to use a good example for you, okay? My beloved Rabbi Tom, okay? I love the man, but that man is tough to give a compliment, okay? And that's because he's been trained and believes that it should all be directed vertically, which is fine. But I had to get him to stop doing that to some degree and let me compliment what he's done. Let me praise him, because what he's done is because he has given him that, and he used it appropriately. So he still is worthy of some praise. And so that's something that we have to find that balance. So when people, I don't want you to think for a second ever that I get some giant head, everybody tells me how great the teachings are. I will thank you for it because I know that tells me I did a good job of being the conduit. So you received it well. I don't take it as, look how great you are. Rabbi, that was such a great teaching. Well, I know where it came from and so do you. But I say thank you because my part delivered it well because it affected you positively. Same thing when you sing. That part you're playing, you did it well and it affected others around you positively. But it's still him. Does that make sense for everyone? I mean, not every one of you comes up to me and tells you that his words impacted you that day. I don't get the opportunity to talk to everybody about that. But I know that if somebody does say something, I know for sure that person is also trying to say, the message from him that you delivered, I received, okay, and I appreciate it. Now, they're also thanking me for being the delivery vessel. And my style helped, my strength, or however, whatever it was. Sometimes I get soft and gentle when at the right moments, that the way he wants me to kind of reach you guys. Those things reached you right. I will take credit for my part, but it's only because he picked me knowing that's how I would deliver things. Okay? Does that make sense then? Yeah. Even though it's hard when they're not doing the way you would rather them do. But I don't think they're missing the mark and just complimenting you. I think they get where it's coming from. Yeah. Okay? So my only correction for them would be, don't do it while he's in the middle of it, okay?
Well, I'll put it this way. It would be helpful for me to hear you praise him and...
Right, and all the people here should acknowledge that. We should always learn and adjust to people if we can. So but I want you to be okay if somebody who doesn't know that, maybe a new person shows up, doesn't do it that way. But you guys, if you want to give him a compliment or a positive affirmation of what he was doing, especially when it's doing it to Yah, then you say, I really appreciate the way you are praising him. Would that be a better wording for you? Okay, good. All right, Vera.
Thank you, Rabbi. I've had this question, I've been carrying it around for years, and this week I listened to 2 of your teachings and you answered my question. But today I have a follow-up question to your answer.
I just want to let everybody know this is our artist, okay? Who makes all those wonderful Parsha Pearls pictures and images and things for the crafts, etc. Just fantastic. Okay, Vera, what's your question?
Thank you. I've had an issue with seek him with all your mind and all your heart. That little word all has been a stumbling block for me. And in your teaching, you said, it is not the degree of seeking, but the intent.
Right, so you can't without distraction, you can't do these things. And we're human beings, there's always distraction. But the intention is to focus all, love with all, put him first, give him everything. But we live in a world that's filled with distracting things. And so you're not going to be 24/7 or whatever amount of time you're not sleeping, right? Focus just on that. But your intention and the effort you make is to love him with all your mind, with all your being, with all your strength, which is the ve'ahavta, right? Okay? That's your intention, which means that's also your effort. He knows full well the world is not going to allow for you to actually do that because it's going to be constantly trying to distract you away from that. But if you intend, you will get much closer to it than if you did not intend. That make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's still, I'm hung up on that word all.
Well, I mean, but you got to understand where the kind of comparisons come in. If it says to love him with all, I have to be careful that I'm not loving somebody more than him. But with all doesn't allow necessarily, if we look at it the wrong way, doesn't allow any room for me to love my wife because I'm loving him with all. So I have to not be holding back is what it's saying. Don't hold back anything in loving him, and he should be loved the most. But if it's all and not leaving any room for anything else, did that help? Okay, I figured that's where we were kind of going. Then how would I love my children? How would I love all of you if it's all got to go to him? Okay? So, but I have to do this with all the strength I have is to make sure that I'm putting all things in the correct alignment, in the correct, when I say alignment, I mean like I have to love him more than I love even my wife. I have to love him more than I love everything, even than my life. That's all. But I still have to love you, okay? And how could I do that if all means there's nothing other than that? That's it, and there's nothing left for anything else, okay? So it means that when I am loving him, maybe this is also, when I am loving him, I'm not holding anything back, okay? By the way, you should have that also with your spouse. You love your spouse, you shouldn't be holding anything back. There should be an all in that relationship as well, okay? Now, you still know you have the Father above all these things, but when you are loving your child, it should be loving them you shouldn't be holding anything back. Is that more of a better way of understanding, does it make sense then for the all, that you're not holding anything back as opposed to giving everything and there's nothing to share with anybody else? Hopefully that makes sense. Did that kind of resonate at all? Yes? No? Clap? Okay, something? I got a bunch of people sitting like this. All right, they're all processing. Okay, Deirdre.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom.
May I be allowed to ask two so I can get back to Freddie?
Sure.
Okay. First one, can you help us girls out and help us figure out how the best way to go about fasting for Yom Kippur during menstruation would work? Okay,
again, I've only recently actually had somebody tell me that there are certain issues with fasting and your cycle and that kind of stuff. Do the best understanding that you have about how that may adversely, especially, okay, let's start off with this. Not everybody has normal, predictable stuff like that, okay? As a matter of fact, the normal, predictable is less common than the unpredictable and the challenges. That's the more I've gotten to know the ladies that I counsel with, as well as my wife and my daughter, and the more women I get to interact with, the more I realize what you would normally think is sort of normal, steady, whatever, predictable is not. Okay, it's very different from woman to woman. And also if you have issues in those normal cycles not being so normal, that your eating habits and fasting could be challenging and problematic. We have people with PCOS, we have people with other issues that really could be a problem. So I would do the research, and then you could always talk to me about your thought, like, hey, based on what I've got going on here, it seems like fasting would be a bad idea. And then I could give you the right ruling on that, which would 99 probably be yes, okay? Like, I don't want you to do something adverse to your health, okay, to fast. And that's Abba's intention as I understand it, all right? As long as I also know you're not looking for some out, which I know you're not, okay? But I know there are other people that are not so excited about fasting, all right? Some of us fast on a regular enough basis that we're not at issue with it at all, okay? One day fast is like nothing, okay? Like I said, I've done a bunch of days. You did 1 day longer than me. How many days did I do? I did 12 days. Okay, I did 12 days. And most of that was with nothing, right? Water or nothing, right? Okay. So anyway, so doing 1 day, if you've done other things, is, but for some people, especially if you haven't done 1 day, that can be a little intimidating. And that's fine. Now, here's the thing for you and any lady that's having issues with their cycle or whatever it is. Doing this once will give, if it gives you an adverse effect, it will be a very short-term adverse effect. It's not going to affect you going down forever because you made this one mistake. You may have a one cycle of challenges or a couple of weeks or days or whatever it is. So it's not like if you try it, it may not be a problem. If you try it, it may be. So you might as well try it maybe at some point just to see how your body reacts, okay? I'll give you an example how it works. I've got a fairly rare blood type. They like me to go donate. I can't donate. My system handles it badly. What I mean by that is if I give blood, then I won't have the, I've walked off the table after they give you the orange juice and everything else and collapsed by the elevator. Laughing as I'm collapsing. This is funny, but I can't stand up. And it's happened to me more than once. And they put me back on the table and pump me full of more orange juice. So my system doesn't handle giving blood. I don't mind, the needles don't bother me, nothing bothers me, but it just, okay? So it's a challenge for me. So I've learned that if I go to do that, I gotta say, leave me on the table longer, keep giving me whatever needs to do to resupply, because I don't do well with that. But other people do totally fine with that. Give on a monthly basis, give whatever they do. So it's worth trying, I suppose, if you don't know, even though you've heard maybe it could be adverse or this or that. That's up to you. If you're too concerned, talk to me. I'll say that's okay. You don't need to do this with fear, all right?
Okay, so that will require you and I to actually have a longer conversation, which is fine. I can call you. So
you could call. Anybody could just call, make an appointment, or if you ask Elder, he'll ask me. You know, and we'll get this information there. Okay. Look, as long as your intention is to, if possible, do what was instructed. I just want health to be the only reason, really, not to do it. Okay. Health should be the one thing that says, no, you shouldn't be doing this. Okay. All right. Good.
I know that in the past you have talked about costumes, and it's Halloween time, and costumes are being sold in the store. I know Brianna would dress up, like you said, Brianna would dress up as princess like any given day of the year, except we don't do it on that day. Costumes are in the store now. Is it appropriate to buy them now since they're readily available, or would that be setting a bad precedent because of what we believe?
Oh, I understand what you're saying. Well, first of all, she had some princess stuff more related to like Barbies and movies and stuff. Then there was nothing to do with Halloween, right? So she had some princess stuff.
Right.
So, I mean, look, if you feel like it's something that would be appropriate for your child to have as something they can play and whatever with, and they're not gonna do it during the Halloween time, and they just happen to be on sale now, that's fine. Look, I know a lot of people that are gonna go out and buy a lot of candy real cheap the day after. Why wouldn't you take advantage of the realities of the situation? Okay, you like chocolate, there'll be a lot of it on sale on the day after. Okay, whatever they didn't sell out. So, yeah, I suppose if it's something that you would be okay buying them any time of the year for them to just play with as a child to play with, then that would be fine at this point too. Just don't use it, obviously, for something like Halloween.
Like wait until after to give it to them.
Right, just so it's not connected. Because the point was you would have bought this if it was February. You would have bought this if it was June, just for something for your daughter to play with or your son to play with. But in that case, they're on sale now.
Yes.
All right, so that's fine.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you so much.
Good. All right, Daphne.
Hello. So I'm not the only one that feels this way, I know, but like I often feel like I wish there was a way to get like graded from the Father.
You want to get like a report card?
Yeah, I want to know where I am. So, and
Elder, make a note of that. We're going to start handing out semester report cards. We'll hand them out at Sukkot and Passover. You'll get 2 of them.
So anyway, so I had an idea. I thought this morning that I wanted to pass by you and see if maybe it's a way to look at this as a possible way to kind of gauge, maybe. So like around feast time, just before feast time, it's like a normal thing people go through. It seems like extra challenges come up, like tests, right?
Yeah, all the time.
So thinking of them like tests, it helps me when it happens, just to think of it like, okay, maybe this is because it's feast time or whatever, kind of helps me see it right.
It's like a midterm exam.
Yeah, so if you see it like okay, you're getting tested.
Right.
So, and then like if you feel like you're having a lot of different kinds of tests, maybe I could think like, oh, well, maybe I'm doing something right if he sees fit to test me right now, and then based on how I do with the test, decides like if I go to the next level or whatever.
Okay, look, I think that's not a bad idea, okay? But the thing is, rather than try to figure out, is this trial for this reason or that reason, et cetera, I would say I would be gauging my progress based on maybe two things. I'll give you two things. Obviously, it could be a lot more. I'll give you two things. One is, the more as you continue to listen to what he's giving in the teaching, right, what I'm speaking, but he's giving, the more you realize, I'm doing that. I'm feeling that way, I'm thinking that way, I'm applying this way, then you know the progress you're making compared to maybe where you would have been in the past. Or when you go back and listen to a teaching that you maybe weren't fully with, 2 years ago, and you re-listen to it and you go, oh, no problem. Then you know you're making progress, okay? So that's one of the ways that you can look at it. Second way, as you get these quizzes, and that's what I called it in the teaching about baptism of fire, okay, which is we go through these trials and tests. These are like pop quizzes that come up. Now, these quizzes that come up, you can examine how you handle it, all right, and how you would have handled it in the past. Now, you might not be able to think that way initially while you're in the thing, but then you should pause and go, wait a minute, I'm actually doing pretty good, because I would have flipped out and fallen apart 2 years ago or last year or whatever it was. So that's another way for you to gauge, like a report card, right, your progress. Okay, as those tests come up, how do you handle them? Are you handling them the right way? All right, are they potentially derailing you, or are they just irritations that you'll handle and you'll get by and you'll figure out what you need to do properly? Or, you could also then look at how you handle the teachings and the instructions. Because a lot of you listen to the teachings and tell me how great they are, but you're not doing what I said. But you got to ask yourself, I really like that teaching, but am I actually doing what was said? And the more the answer is yes, the more that you are growing and progressing. That's another way of getting a report card. Does that help?
Yes.
All right, good. You're welcome. All right, Miss Shira.
I do have a question, and I don't know, you might tell me, why should it even matter? But it's about original sin, the doctrine of original sin that we are taught in Christianity. And I have recognized that as Christian people, we were using that doctrine that kind of you have this inherently awful, evil nature in you, and so it kind of excuses the fact that, well, you'll never be perfect, and so you don't try to be perfect.
Right.
But on the other hand, the heart is deceitful and desperately wicked, and in me dwells no good thing, and all that. We heard all those. But now, for years now, I've been blessed to know that I can make a decision that's righteous, and I can aim for perfection. And the Bible does mention people like Zechariah, the father of Yochanan HaMabdil. He and his wife were blameless. But I can't figure out, my head just wants to wrap around this. How can we actually be righteous and good and yet have this desperately wicked heart? Can you explain how is it that you understand that?
All right. I'll understand it as I say it. All right, no, so here's the thing, and I think I've taught this actually in all kinds of different pieces and parts throughout the teachings, but let me just kind of piece it together here in a more holistic way maybe, okay? Look, there's no such thing as original sin, okay? He created us, and I know how you know this from the pieces that I've done. Here's one of the pieces. I told you, my little hallucination, that at the beginning of all things, in the beginning was the Word, right? And the Word was with Elohim, the Word was Elohim. That at the beginning of all things, the Son came to the Father and said, hey, I want to create something, all right? Because remember, the whole plan for salvation and reward and everything else was all planned before the first thing was started, okay? He was slain from before the foundation of the world. So that being said, in their conversation, this is my idea, okay? As I piece it together, the Father was like, no problem, that's a great idea. But you understand that to do this, and we create human beings, and they're going to mess up, and I'll tell you why in a minute, and they're going to mess up, and you'll need to die for them, and all that. So the whole thing was discussed in some way. And he agreed before anything got started that this was going to play out. Okay, so you've heard me teach this before. A lot of you have heard it. I know you have for sure, okay? It just depends on where people start, but you go back almost to the beginning of this round here, so in about almost 12 years. So the thing is, all right, what we have is he created free will beings with malleable plastic, okay, plastic means it can be changeable, elements in our personalities where we can become this or that. We can make choices right or wrong. We can desire this or that, whether it's right or wrong for us. And so he knew giving us that nature, which is the nature that also would sing praises to him, the nature that would love him beyond, not just love him because he made us to love him, right? But choosing to do that might also make other choices. So he knew that we had a nature that would sin. So it's not that there's an original sin and everything would have been fine if they hadn't screwed it up. I mean, everybody wants to blame Adam and everybody for screwing it up. No, anything he had created, any human being would have messed it up at some point. Because we have a nature that has curiosity, has desires, is open to all kinds of things, which opens up the door to Hasatan to place some ideas in our head to see what we do with them. And it allows for the Father to place some ideas in our head to see what we do with it. So it's that plasticity, it's that flexibility, it's that malleability that also has the black and white, okay, meaning or I should say more the darkness and the light. You're gonna be in the darkness sometimes and the light sometimes. We're gonna be right, we're gonna be wrong. We're gonna want, we're not gonna want. And so the whole righteousness thing is when we recognize the choice and then we make the right choice. Did that help?
Yeah, that's amazing. So is this New Age? Is this yin yang?
No, but yin yang is a recognition of
Okay.
the fact that our nature can cover that spectrum. Okay, they just describe it as the yin and the yang. But you've got all of that in you, and he wants you to overcome the darkness with the light. And that's all darkness and light teaching, okay? But you have to have both available to you, both to be able to grow and to be challenged so that you choose the light. Not that you're just given light. I mean, if people say, well, if Adam hadn't messed it up, we'd all just be in light. But then he would never know what we're made out of. Okay, so that's what Hasatan's purpose is, to see what we're made out of. Well, here's something tempting to you, and he says you can't have it. What do you think? You want it anyway? What do you want to do with that? I mean, that's our life. And so that's human nature. And our human nature can manifest as dark or as light as light, and everything in between.
I think I got hung up on Yetzer Hara, that all we have is an evil inclination.
Right.
But you're saying we have a Yetzer Tov.
Well, it's the point is the people who we call it tzaddik, are the ones who have overcome that part of our nature called the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. Not that we are just evil inclination. We all have evil inclinations and good inclinations. Even worldly people will step up and do something that is a good deed that everybody would agree, wow, that was a great thing that you just did. People that have no vertical beliefs whatsoever have showed up in North Carolina to help everybody out there. There were some that went out there who were just worldly people who just have a heart to do some good things, right? That's a Yetzer Tov. That's a good nature, inclination to do good. But there's also those that have this, they're more immersed in doing mostly the bad stuff. So you're doing a battle. And your battle, that's the darkness and light teaching. The battle is between your nature, which can go either way. Who's gonna win?
I might be stepping ahead here to say this, but it occurs to me that as you're teaching on the good news, boy, that is good news that we can overcome.
Oh, absolutely.
That's amazing.
Amazing, which is why the good news teaching is gonna lead into the repentance teaching.
Yeah.
See, repentance only, maybe this is gonna be a profound thing for you too. The only reason we repent is because our good nature overcomes our bad nature to recognize that we were wrong. So it's an awareness of the Yetzer Hara winning out, and we said, oh, we shouldn't have done that. Because the part of you that has an inclination towards good says, that was wrong. I'm gonna own that, fix it, because that's not something I need to be doing. But you did it because that part of your nature was running the show for a few minutes.
Thank you so much. I think putting it all together for me is going to really help.
Well, good,
Thank
good.
you.
Which is why I love the questions, okay? Because you guys forced me to take some of the pieces that I've thrown out there and help tie them together for you. All right, Shannon.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom.
So I got an interesting question. It's about not asking questions. No, give it some context. Now this is this is not me picking on anyone, because I know a lot of us, we don't like ask questions because we just listen and get our answer. This is more about me not asking questions, because I kind of get on myself about, I don't think you're participating enough. Those are just those voices in my head, because me being white and hearing whites don't like to participate, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to participate here. So this is a weird pride thing. I don't know what it is, but
No, I'm proud of you, because you are overcoming to come up, because you have a very white side of that personality. White meaning the color code, white, yellow, red, and blue. So not her skin color, okay? All right, but this is that personality that tends to be more shy, more introverted, and doesn't like to be out in front. Okay, go ahead.
And well, throughout my whole childhood, like at school, like the teachers say, she's a great student, but she doesn't really tend to ask questions. And the thing is, it's not because most of the time it's not because I'm shy about asking questions, it's because I normally just don't have any questions in my head. I kind of process things differently, and then I start thinking really hard, do I have a question to ask? I was like spending a good long 20 minutes down there like, didn't I have a question to ask? I think I do, but how do I word this? And
Right.
is it just going to be a waste of time? And then I end up talking myself out of it sometimes. So, is it like good, bad, or is it
Okay,
just
so let me clarify. Okay, so when I picked on everybody for the zone meetings to make sure you show up with your questions, in a group of 100 plus, okay, there are going to be a percentage of people that have questions and then watch teachings and they get their answers. But there also is going to be a percentage of people that have questions, watch teachings, and now they've got more questions, or they need more clarification. In a group of 100 plus, we had, over 200 in one of the meetings and almost 200 in the other one. So out of 200 people, I would expect at least 10 or 15% would have more questions. So there should have been at least 20, 30 people lined up having questions, because I know they have them, some of them being shy. But there are a lot of you that when you get your questions, and then you go pick up a teaching and right away there's your answer. Or you come here and what you were struggling with happens to be what I teach that day. And so that's fine. So not everybody is going to have questions to ask out loud. You have the questions and then you got the answer. But a lot of you need, as Shira just did, how to parse things together and piece certain things together that may not have been addressed as directly in a single teaching. And so she's asking, how does this actually fit together? Okay, now a lot of you didn't have that question, so you didn't think to ask it. But you have other questions, or even if you have no questions, that's fine. So if you don't come up and ask questions, that's fine. But if you have questions, please come up and ask them. The only way to get the answers is to ask, okay?
Thank you, Rabbi. I had a question after all, and it was about that.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
You're welcome, okay? So no, I don't want anybody to feel bad if you don't ever ask a question, because I know you're asking, like you're asking your spouse, you're asking a friend, you're asking him directly, and then you get an answer because the teaching gives you the answer. That's great, he's giving you the answer. All right, Brianna.
Hi.
Hey, darling.
So I was looking in Proverbs because I'm going to be teaching in Proverbs 6 for the children's program at m.t.o.i. And then I was looking at Proverbs 7, and in verse 22 through 27, it says, he goes after her. Well, the beginning of the chapter talks about like a woman, and a lot of times in scripture, they talk about a woman being there to tempt.
Right.
But it says, he goes after her immediately like an ox, he goes to slaughter, as in chains a fool to the punishment, till an arrow strikes through his liver like a bird rushing into a snare, and did not know it would take his life. And then goes on to say that her house is the way to the grave, going down to the rooms of death. So the woman in the proverb, I'm assuming, is referring to anything that tempts our flesh, correct?
Right, this is going basically to you desire it. You
Right.
desire it, but it's not something you should desire. It's something that would be obviously causing eventually death.
And then it says, when it says, and did not know that it would take his flesh, don't we usually know that when we give in to our desires, they're contradictory to him? Or in this case, did the person just seriously have no idea that they were giving into something they weren't?
No. Okay, so, and good question. And by the way, for those who are wondering, well, why is she teaching anything? She's teaching the m.t.o.i program for the children that Rebbetzin put together, but she's working with a particular group of the children. All right, so it's actually a preset program. Now, what is the key word in the verse you're having trouble? It's verse 23, right? And did not know it would take his life. The key word is know. So he had information that had not a deep enough relationship with the information. A lot of people do things knowing full well, informationally, it could blow up in their face, but they don't have enough relationship with that to trust it, so they ignore it and do it anyway. Anybody ever do that? I've done that many times, okay? All the guys are raising their hand because we've all done those kind of dumb things. We know it's stupid. We know it's likely to burn us, blow up in our face, hurt us in some way, and we think, well, I'll get away with it, and it won't happen. Because remember, this person says he goes after immediately like an ox going to slaughter and in chains a fool of punishment till an arrow strikes. When you go through the minefield, you're all of a sudden shocked that it blows you up. So yes, you have information. I think this person isn't like shocked, like, oh my gosh, I got shot. But not a relation to know it, to say, yeah, if I do this, I will get hurt. This is what the whole scriptures is about, for you to have a knowing and not just an information. All right, did that help?
Right, so it is a person who has an understanding of him, but doesn't have a good enough relationship to realize.
No, understanding is more knowing. They have information.
Okay.
Okay? Because information doesn't mean that you have an understanding of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can tell you, don't touch that, it's hot, and you can believe me. You touch it and you get yourself burned that one time, now you've got an understanding. But you shouldn't have to go that far. You should trust enough the person who gave you the information, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
And then, and can I ask just one more?
Sure.
In chapter 9.
You're my daughter. You can do whatever you want.
In chapter 9, it's talking about a similar idea with another, like a woman. But in this case, it's talking about who is simple. It mentions the idea of being simple in verse 4, 6, 13, and in 16. And so it also mentions, with the idea of being simple, those who lack heart. So can you define simple? And does it mean that you're easily tempted and it doesn't take much to satisfy your flesh? Because I know that it says like his commands are easy and his way is easy, but then it says simple. So I was just wondering about that.
Okay, so simple in this case is not referring to the hardness of it, the difficulty of it, like this is simple, this is hard. It's talking about simple meaning like a child. Okay, we say that it's like a simpleton that way. Like it's a young person in whatever, not necessarily physically, but a young person or young in the understanding of the walk. And that's why he's talking about the idea of that you are going to now, verse 6 says, leave the simple ones and live and walk in the way of understanding. The simple don't have understanding yet. They're too new in what they're doing. Okay?
So it's kind of like the same thing in the other.
It's the same thing.
Okay.
It's a growth process, right? They start off as simple with information that when I taught you, of course, look, you're a wonderful young lady now, but when I taught you when you were just a wonderful, wonderful little child, you couldn't understand some of the things I taught you then because you were in this place called simple, right?
It's kind of like when I don't know where it is in scripture, I can't remember, when you're talking about like the ones who still had the milk instead of the meat.
Right,
They couldn't
Paul
handle
talks
it
about
yet.
that. Yeah, he says, look, I want to feed you meat, but you guys are choking on the milk. Okay,
So
that's the simple are the ones who are choking on the milk. He says, or you're still drinking milk when you should be moving on to meat. The simple are on the milk. Mm-hmm. That's that level that children would be at. But he says that's where the contrast is, the idea of then I want you to leave the simple ones. Don't be with the simple ones anymore. I want you to move on to understanding. He says, I want you to walk in the way of understanding. Okay? Good questions.
So would you say that the children of Israel, when they were experiencing the things and they weren't fearing him, were they still of that simple mindset? Okay. And we're still kind of that simple mindset. We haven't gotten there yet.
At times.
Yeah. Okay, that's it.
Okay, and by the way, for children, and maybe as adults, if you can remember back, there's certain things that you learned in life, maybe from your parents or from other people, that you kind of, accepted as real and true. And then one day a light bulb went on and you had understanding as to why. Then you were like, oh, now I know why they said don't do that. Now I understand why they said do this instead or whatever it was. That's understanding. And then you start to understand the point, the purpose, the why. We can learn the what and how, when, and all the other stuff. Okay, I could teach you all the feasts and you wouldn't have understanding of the plan of reward. You wouldn't have understanding of what the point is. I gave you guys a deeper understanding of the idea of coming to practice community. That's an understanding that you don't get from the simple, hey, you need to keep Sukkot. Okay, that's the simple of it. This is the dates. It starts on the 15th. It runs to the 21st of the 7th month, et cetera, right? That's simple. But then, you see what I'm saying? Okay? All right, Amy.
I have a comment first. Like Christians always like, oh, the Torah's too hard, which really bugs me because they're actually observing us doing it.
That's hysterical. I had never thought of that. Very well played.
So if Torah is a mistake, being a mistake created by a perfect creator, then doesn't that mean Yah would have set his children up for failure, knowing ahead of time that the Torah was too hard, but he gave it to them anyway, and then he turns around and give it to the Gentiles? So that's just ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway.
Well, look, that's kind of the problem with simple. Christianity wants you to stay in simple. Because if you go beyond simple, you realize how illogical a lot of what they say is. Okay? It's not logical that he would insist for 4,000 years people do this, and then all of a sudden say, nah, that was too hard. Okay, first of all, not that the Creator could ever make a mistake, but I would think if he did, it wouldn't take him 4,000 years to figure that out. Just saying. Okay? But he's perfect, so we know he didn't make any mistakes. But if Christianity is going to make it sound like he made a mistake, really? And it would take him 4,000 years to figure that out?
It didn't take him that long to have Noah build an ark.
Nope.
Okay, so talking about the mind and the heart, kind of like our mind, our eyes can see the physical, like Peter on the water, and he looked around at the waves, which I kind of equate that to the world, and we start sinking. But in our heart is the hidden things that we have to go look for because it's hidden. And so we're not going to see it necessarily with our eyes or in the world because the world's really not real. It's an illusion. And so when we talk about it's in the heart, it takes a lot more work to go look for it because it's deeper in here, not like the eyes or the windows, like light.
Right, it's not that surface level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's easier to get caught up in this part because it's out in the open. But your heart is more hidden and you have to go looking for it.
Yep.
More. Okay, so then bear with me. I got one more thing.
Which, by the way, is why when we talk about the heart of the matter, we talked about this a lot. And in some of the Torah portions, we covered the idea that you need to take this surface level stuff that you see and lay it up in this deeper place. He says you are to lay up the Torah in your heart. You have to take it from the simple and move it into the deeper. Because now it's in your heart, which is where you embrace it in a different way than just recognizing, well, he said it, so I guess I should do it. Instead of, he said it, I guess I should do it, and I desire to do it because he said it. And then it comes into a whole nother place.
Okay, so that leads me up to the Lost Sea Scrolls. And, Father Abba, he either allows or causes, so he at the very least allowed those to be found.
Yep.
And so last night, after what we were talking about during counseling, I was trying to find something appropriate to watch, and I found a video about Mary Magdalene. And she was describing how learning Torah, what Yeshua was teaching them, you have to really internalize it. It's all about you and yourself, and you internalize it because you're trying to reach that higher being. And you talk about how we're not going to change until we all become of one mind.
Of his
And so Mary Magdalene was kind of talking about that. And the disciples were kind of jealous because they're like, well, why would Yeshua tell her that and not us? Because she's a woman. But it kind of sounds new agey, but it kind of like goes along with what you teach, like the world is an illusion and what's real is Torah, but it's internal. And we have to keep transforming into Yeshua because we have to keep working internally until we reach that higher elevation of becoming like Yeshua.
Amen. Okay, but here's the thing, right? Okay, I'm agreeing with what you're saying. I'm not agreeing with whatever book claims that Mary wrote or this other thing, okay? Because these are all peripheral books that are out there, and there's hundreds and hundreds of them that are out there that claim to be the book written by this one or that one or that one or that one. But we have to also be aware of, yes, there's things that match up perfectly with Scripture, but this idea of elevating, that's pure Buddhism, that's pure Hinduism. There's a lot of other systems have the idea of elevating. That doesn't mean it's not also part of what Yeshua taught. So we have to just be careful that we could turn that into New Age. We could turn it into anything. The whole point was you were supposed to, he said the kingdom of heaven is at hand and it's in you if you bring it in, which means you're becoming him. Let this mind be in you, Philippians 2:5, right? So let this mind be in you. So that transformation and elevating, which other cultures have recognized as well, and it's in their systems, is what this is also talking about here. So it's not that this is like that is like this.
Yes, exactly.
Okay? All right, good. And by the way, the whole Peter walking on the water thing, everything is parable. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. But it wasn't in the book for you to read about because we should be impressed with him walking on water. What we should be impressed with is that his trust level was so high, he could walk on water, which you would think would be impossible. But as soon as distraction of the world came around, he took his eyes off of the target, of the goal, and started to sink. That is a great picture for your life, okay? Not that you would literally be looking at Yeshua and literally walking on water. Okay, but your life is one of those things that if you take your eyes off of him, you are going to sink and possibly drown in some ways. You're going to have that experience. This is a metaphor for that, okay? So hopefully that we get that right. Hi, Ms. Januska.
Hi. Rabbi, I took your advice and I've been listening to Are You Covenanted? And it's such a great teaching. Thank you. I love that one.
You're welcome.
I have always had this question ever since we've been doing this walk, my husband and I. Missionaries and missions. I see them they're building schools, they're building wells, and then I get guilty and I think, oh my gosh, they're doing so many wonderful things. Is there Messianic missionaries? What does God think, or what does Yahweh think about what they're doing?
Okay, I've talked about this before, but I guess I haven't talked about it in a while, so I'll talk about it again. Some of you are nodding your head. Yeah, you've heard me talk about this before. All right, so first of all, I have very mixed thoughts and feelings about missionary work, okay? And I don't mean missionary work in general. I mean like missionary work as is generally done by Christianity, because most of it's done by them, all right? And it's done not in all cases, okay? I don't know enough about every missionary thing that's done out there. But it's done in the context of we're helping people, but in the real context is we're manipulating them and forcing them to hear the Christian story so they'll become Christian. That's kind of the point. You go to a place with these missionaries and they'll feed everybody, but they'll only feed them if they sit and listen to a come to Jesus meeting first, okay? And we're gonna build you a school, but we're gonna teach you Christian stuff in the school. And we're gonna build you, it's all about making them Christian. So that's why I'm mixed. I like that they're helping, if they are helping. And by the way, the reason I say this is because I've spoken to a gentleman that was I'm trying to think where he was. I think he was in Africa. And he was a pilot doing mission work. And he said that the problem with a lot of these groups is they come into some place, they provide all this stuff, and then they leave, and now they have basically disabled these people's thoughts of providing for themselves, because these missionary people had come in and provided so much that they just basically derailed their own personal growth. So then everything's much worse when they leave, because where they were struggling to take care of themselves, well, they came in and now provided all this stuff for them, and so yeah, if you're gonna do mission work, you have to go in there helping them do for themselves, not doing for them, all right? That's point one. Point one is Christianity does it for one reason. They'll tell you they're doing it because they love and want to take care of people. If that were true, they wouldn't force Jesus on them. all right? But they do, because they're disingenuous. I'm not saying some of you did, no, I went and I wanted to help people. I'm sure you weren't disingenuous. The system you were in had a different agenda than you did. They wanted a captive audience that was so desperate for whatever, they listen to anything and say yes to anything. Just feed me, just give me what I need. Build me a school, get me clean water, provide me with power or electricity, whatever it is. Do something I need. I'll say whatever you want, I'll do whatever you want. That is not the Father's way of doing things. Okay? Now, if we continue to grow and if the financial support continues to come into where we can afford it, I think that first and foremost, we should have had a team that could go to Georgia or North Carolina with equipment and supplies and no agenda spiritually, except to help people, okay? I would have us have trucks with equipment and tools and supplies and just send them to go. Then if people say, why are you guys here? Because we believe this is what our Creator would want us to do. And if they ask more questions, maybe we say, hey, listen, I got a teacher, you can listen to whatever. But we're doing it just to be that light. And we could do that in every country. By the way, we're doing this now in the Philippines. We're doing this now in South Africa. We're doing this in other places. We are setting up points of light and helping some people as we can help them. Okay, and I'd like to help more, but it can't be to force them, evangelize them, or whatever Christianity would call it, to kind of get more numbers into the system. That is not a reason for us to do that. We should do it just out of love for human beings, okay? No matter what they believe, and not force anything on them. They're starving to death and they're dying of unclean water and everything else. Well, then let's go keep people alive. I'm great with that. But that's a whole different deal than what you see happening in other places, okay? So if that's something you would love to be a part of, we actually have a bank account called Missions. It's a little thing you can drop down in our donation menu that says Missions, and we have very little money in it. There's some that we can use for that, but not much. But I think Teresa's right. We should be doing something, and I would love to be doing something. And Elder knows, I've said this many times, Rabbi Tom knows I've said it many times. It has to be that we're just going to help with no other agenda except to be lights and show the Father to them by just being there. Not by forcing anything and saying, well, we'll feed you, but you got to sit and listen first. That is exactly what they do in most places. Okay, you want to eat? Come and sit down, listen to this little whatever message, and then, do a little altar call, then we'll feed you. I'm sure that gets very zealously excited people who really care about Messiah, or maybe they just want to eat and they're hungry, okay? It's dumb, all right? So I said I have mixed feelings because I really want people to get help. And quite frankly, the church does a better job because they do more of it than most people do. So they're the ones doing a lot of it. I think that's great, but at what cost and at what agenda? And plus, they're evangelizing people, which really essentially makes my job harder because they're making more people trapped in that system, all right? So, Teresa, keep prayer that people might support so that we can go ahead and do something like that, okay? But the way we would do it, we wouldn't be just sponsoring a child somewhere or doing this other thing. We'd actually need boots on the ground in the place that are Torah Observant, Messianic, Torah Observant Israel, right? They got to be m.t.o.i people that we could send to a country, boots on the ground, and see what's really going on. And see what's really needed so that we're not supporting some scammy thing that's out there. Everybody out there contacts us, says, well, we have an orphanage and we have this. Everybody has an orphanage, apparently, in Africa, okay? They all claim they all have orphanages and they're all this and all that, and they're full of it. And we know because we've sent people down there who've actually met with and found out they were lying, all right? So I'm all for it, but let me just say this before I go there. We got to take care of the body first, okay? And we're still struggling there quite a bit. Okay, so as much as I'd like to help them, we got to put the oxygen mask on ourselves first. And the body still has need. I mean, it's amazing how we have no money at this point to help the counties that have been wiped out by this hurricane, and there's no money for that. All right, fine. But we have tons of money to send to other places, billions of dollars to here and billions of dollars to there, but what about the people right now, right here that need money? Okay? All right? Oh, but we care about everybody else in another country. I care about them too. We're going to take care of ourselves first. And that's not selfish. If I can get us healthy, then there's more of us to help them. That's why I use the oxygen mask thing. On the plane, they say, put yours on first, then help your child, right? Don't give your child first. Put yours on first, then you can help the child. Okay, I think the body needs to do that as well, right?